أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم
पनाह मांगता हूँ अल्लाह की शैतान मरदूद से।
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
अल्लाह के नाम से जो रहमान और रहीम है।
Assalamu alaikum viewers, a very warm welcome to all of you. You're watching Hidayat TV. I'm Haider with another episode of A Generation Gap. Viewers, on Wednesday, Lee Rugby, a drummer, 25-year-old, near Woolwich barracks, military barracks, he was hacked to death by Michael Adeblojo and Michael Adebwal. This is a ferocious and most vicious attack, and no one can go on to defend this. We in this today in this program will try to go and find out that what implications we have for this, and obviously in the strongest term we condemn this attack, and thoughts are with the deceased family and all the law abiding citizens residing in the UK, and we'll try to talk to few people. We are live today as well, so you can call us and share your point of view. We have also seen there are some walks of life who have reservations and they have tried to defend or justify it, but we want to make sure that we will not give any airtime to those individuals or those parties. And to discuss all this, we do have Ali Taj from California. We talked to him regarding Boston bombing a few weeks ago, and also from London we have Ale Natik. We have also talked to him. Assalamu alaikum to both of you, and very warm welcome to you. Your initial reactions, please.
Okay, well, I don't know who you're going to, but I'll start.
Yeah, you can go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Heather. I just want to first of all wish everyone congratulations and felicitations on the birthday of Imam Ali, and also wish all the families, especially in the US, who have loved ones serving for the country, a happy Memorial Day. I just want to start with the LUBP article by Rusty Walker, who is a ex-Marine, and he served the country, the United States, in the army, in the armed forces. And I just want to start with something he wrote on LUBP, and I quote, "Seeing the beheading of a British army soldier near Woolwich Army Barracks in the southeast London has shocked the world. The reason for the beheading of this British army soldier by these two terrorists was not his current duty as a drummer in the parade ceremonies, but that he had served in Iraq. Unlike those who are new to these images, just those of us who have seen so many of these types of videos in Pakistan, we are used to the revulsion and are familiar with the ideology. Events in Quetta and other tribal areas of Pakistan has been a crying voice in the wilderness, having only regional coverage instead of global outrage. The rest of the world rarely glimpses the horror we know all too well. If you are a Shia or an Ahmadi or a Christian or anybody that is anti-Taliban in Pakistan, you're used to this news. The British press and the British officials condemned the act caught on film as horrific and sickening. Prime Minister Cameron said there were strong indications the murder was connected to terrorism and Islamic extremism. This cautious language is reminiscent of the narrative we hear in the US. That is, it neglects the terms we use of Salafists and Takfiri Deobandis. Mm-hmm. Such terms are not generally recognizable in the West. Now, I'd just like to stop here and say that he goes on to talk about this Wahhabi brand of terrorism, which has occasionally been talked by even by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. But this narrative of correctly identifying where this terrorism comes from, where the root causes of this terrorism comes from, is not prevalent in the Western media. And I feel we need to educate the Western audience about using the correct narrative by painting the entire Muslim community with a broad brush, or saying Islamic terrorist, or using words like that, of course annoys the Muslims and they resist, and sometimes their reaction is an apologetic one.
Okay.
But
okay.
I think we should go beyond that and correctly identify who
Okay,
these
let me move on to Ali. Ali has just mentioned painting with a broader brush all the Muslims. You know, Muslim Council of Britain came forward and condemned this attack straight away. Do you really think they have to do it? I mean, I do not connect myself with anyone who has done, or this unforgivable and deluded act of terrorism. What's your view on that? Why they have to condemn?
Well, I think to start with, as an immigrant who has found a safe home in the UK, and post-Woolwich, the reaction which I've seen, the overall reaction in the society, I'm heartened to see the tolerance and pluralism, and the tolerance of the British people is really, really something which every one of us should appreciate. As far as the reaction you're saying, well, to be honest, I am really tired of the old cliches, which have become a kind of standard response to all Islamist terrorism, not just in the UK, but across the world. And the kind of the same response that we hear is Islam means peace, and that's it. After every incident of terrorism, what you get is the response to these terrorists that these terrorists have no religion. Well, I, to be honest, disagree here. When a killer butchers someone with the chants of Allah Akbar and then proclaims that he's doing it for Islam, there's no reason to believe that he doesn't really have a religion. What about Taliban, who have released video messages and then go on to kill people and claim that they are doing it for a specific ideology? So of course they do have a religion, that they are following a specific ideological interpretation of religion, and we have to accept it and then find solutions for it. And if Islam means peace and terrorism has no space in it, then we need to consider why so many Islamist terrorists are doing it. Of course, there is something wrong somewhere, and we can't just run away from it. Standard Muslim response, I find it just defeatist and escapist at best. By saying that the terrorist is not from amongst us, we are just trying to run away from the problem. Just disowning the terrorist will not solve the problem.
The Woolwich Mosque, they issued a statement, and it was a written statement, and they were not able to talk anything more than a written statement. So do you think this is what is actually needed, rather than coming and combating it with their own force and presenting an alternative?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I mean, all the response from the Muslim community that you have seen, not from one mosque or all the imams, all of them are standard responses. All of them, if you sum them up, all they are saying is, this person is not from amongst us. They're disowning it. They're saying Islam means peace, but these are all cliches. Who is doing the actual soul searching? These kind of reaction, this is only escapist. We are running away from the actual issue. We have to accept that Islamist terrorism exists, and then we have to solve it. This is an internal ideological problem. There are some countries funding it. There's an ideology behind it, and we need to do a very serious soul searching here.
Okay, so what about the British public itself? You know, there have been calls that we should go back where we come from, and all those sort of obvious anger in those statements. So how do you react to those, especially you being in London?
Well, I think that their reaction is in every community. So I think you should expect that. But I think that kind of response came from only a very small minority. And the overall response, which I have seen living here for a few years, this is a very tolerant country, and most of the people, overwhelming majority of the people, still don't think like those fascists think. So that's not representative of the whole community, I think.
Okay, moving on to soul searching. Ali Taj, soul searching within, or we have to, Ali is just saying that this is a reaction. British media or British public is giving a reaction. So this is the narrative or the argument these killers or butchers have in their mind as well, that they say proudly that this is the reaction. So how would you equate these two reactions?
Well, both reactions are definitely, both are reactionaries. And like Ale rightly said, it's not enough to say that they're not from within Islam. I'd like to put it in a historical context. The brutal murder of the son of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, Imam Hussein al-Islam, was also done by Muslims. And his family was butchered to death on the plains of Karbala. And the people there was two types of people that butchered Imam Hussein al-Islam. And the one type of person was somebody that was doing it for monetary gains. And the other type of person was ideologically driven. They were driven from an literalist interpretation of the Quran, which said that you have to, you cannot go against whoever is the king. So, and this is what it comes down to. It comes down to is that literalist interpretation of the Quran, which some paid mullahs make, which is there to strengthen the king. And we all know who the king is in this case. So we have to apply that model and that historical perspective on how thousands of mullahs 1400 years ago made fatwas that the son of the prophet, the founder of the religion, should be killed because this is what the Quran says. How ridiculous is that? And the literalist interpretations they are using today are no different. So they have these mullahs that are paid or are driven by some other objective, and some of them may be just stupid, but they're all driven to make one type of literalist interpretation, which they have no authority in making. And those literalist interpretations, such as using some verses of the Quran, such as strike at the neck and so on, and promoting them, they create these ideologically driven people that just go rogue. And as we've seen in the case of Woolwich, this was a recent convert to Islam who got influenced by Anjum Chaudhry, who is a literalist, and got influenced by this literalist thinking, which is founded through the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to strengthen the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, just like Yazid ibn Muawiyah wanted to strengthen his caliphate. So it's all about caliphate and strengthening the caliphate through using the literalist interpretations.
Okay, you mentioned obviously Anjum Chaudhry, and we'll come to that. But viewers, I just want to, numbers on the screen. If you want to participate in our show, you can call us live. And Ali, I want to bring in the role of media. These wild images and wild video, it was circulated within the British media. Do you think it was a responsible response to this incident? Should they have done? Because this is what my understanding is. This is what they wanted. They wanted the propagation, and which were eventually they were successful.
I agree. I think this is not something which all of these channels have to follow some media ethics. That there's a code of conduct, there's standard operating procedures. So I don't think it was very responsible of any of those media channels to air such videos, which I mean, a person with a knife in his hand, blood-stained. I don't think it was suitable for any child in the house to see. So I don't think it makes any good. It does anything positive. So
it's just unacceptable. I mean, since the Leveson inquiry and everything included, I mean, I'm unable to understand. If it would happen in a third world country, I would have understood this. But in British public or British media, it was just unacceptable. And I think everyone has to do some soul searching in there. Okay, let's move on to this.
No, wait 1 second. I have a little different view on that. I honestly think in today's media, you cannot censor things. And even if the British mainstream media had not shown these videos, they would be viral on social media. So I think that's my personal view, and obviously we can have disagreements. Everybody has their different view, but I think in today's world you can't censor these things. What you have to do is what we're really trying to do here is to have an effective narrative countering that and correctly point out and use correct terminology to point out who these people are, why is this happening, how it can be stopped. Instead of if we just censor the video, okay, I mean, there is a valid point in what Ali and you are saying that this shouldn't be seen by children, but my point is it will be seen
somehow on the social media and Twitter and Facebook and okay. But I mean, you mentioned presenting an alternative, but let's go back to soul searching. Within Muslim community, we do have differences. We do follow different school of thoughts. Their justification is totally different, or we condemn it in strongest possible terms. But if we try to present an alternative, do you think that alternative is accepted within the Muslim community in the very first place and then going into the mainstream? Ali?
Okay, so what you're saying is if we present an alternative, is it accepted in the mainstream?
As well as within our own community, within our own society, or within our own Muslims.
What we're really talking about is going back to Orthodox Islam, both Shia and Sunni. And what we are really against is these new sort of reformist movements within Islam, which spawned after the end of the Muslim Caliphate. And the Muslim Caliphate, I mean the Ottoman Caliphate, which ended in 1920s. And it was then people looked for alternatives as to where they would get proper guidance for their interpretations. Unfortunately, the first Taliban, which were supported by British intelligence to overthrow the Ottoman Caliphate, were the Saudi family. And since then they have controlled over the Kaaba. They were considered usurpers by most Muslims up until the 70s. And the time of Shah Faisal, the title of the kings were Shahs. It was not what they use today, which is Khadim-e Haramain Sharifan. Slowly they've been able to buy off mullahs all over India and Indonesia and even North America, UK. They buy off mullahs who revere them as the custodians of the holy mosques, but they were for about 50 years seen as usurpers, and slowly they've been able to strengthen their caliphate by buying off mullahs and mosques, and which is why they fund so many of these mosques from Indonesia to Malaysia to anywhere where there is Muslims. So they consider it their it is their safeguard against keeping their kingdom alive, is to buy mullahs and mosques who validate them as the custodians of the holy mosque. They're in fact not. They're the first Taliban.
Okay. So do you agree, Ali, with this notion of the events?
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, if they have established this kingdom, obviously they want it to be long-lasting, and they would. So, what do you think? What we can do to challenge it, or challenge this ideology?
Well, you see, the first thing which we need to consider is that the usual argument which the apologists take to defend these incident of Islamist terrorism is that they try to equate it with foreign policies of certain countries. For example, you might have seen that some of them are trying to defend, saying this person has done this because of the British foreign policy. Now, this is a clear obfuscation technique to hide from the actual issue of ideological Islamist terrorism. This is doing nothing positive. They're actually kind of defending the Islamists like Taliban and TTP and LEJ by giving them an escape route. I would like to ask these apologists, what about the 100 liberal or secular political party workers which were killed in the last month? Which country were they occupying? Which country were the Shia or Ahmadis of Pakistan were occupying? Were they part of any foreign policy? Why were 21,000 Shia and thousands of Ahmadis killed by the same mindset in Pakistan? What about the killing of ordinary people of Pakistan? Which country had they invaded? So there is absolutely no justification for any sort of Islamist terrorism, and all of us, or any people who are kind of apologizing this, they need to consider this. As far as the states are concerned, as we have been discussing, there are certain Arab states who are funding it. Now, to take the example of Saudi Arabia, the Saudi regime spends billions of pounds every year promoting their brand of Islam, the Wahhabism, which is a fundamentalist extremist movement. Much of these funds are spent on the education of children in faith schools and mosques and madrasas, especially in Britain. So I'm really surprised why the Muslim parents are not worried. Why the Muslim community in Britain is not
And
worried.
I think I just want to tell our viewers that in 2009, according to WikiLeaks, Hillary Clinton, the then Secretary of State, has acknowledged that Saudi businessmen and the Saudi government itself has been funding, and US is concerned. So it is not something that we are making up. It is official. Okay, please go ahead.
We of course have documentary evidence, not just from WikiLeaks, but from other sources as well. They have been funding terrorism madrasas in South Punjab, in Pakistan, and elsewhere. Take the example of UK. I have some data to quote here. As I said, according to Yahya Burt of the City Circle UK, they are spending £3 billion annually on the Wahhabi propaganda to export this particular ideology through mosques and madrasas and Islamic centers across the world. Recently, they have funded $100 million to build a mosque in Kabul. Similarly, Qatar has donated £1.5 million for a mosque in UK last year. Take the example of East London Mosque, example of Finsbury Mosque, Brixton Mosque. All of these funded and established by Saudi Arabia. Example of Blackburn Mosque.
So $3 billion pounds, you're saying it is been invested in UK only, or is across the world?
That's the kind of annual fund they are spending to promote Wahhabism. There's a very specific paper on that by the City Circle. But I was quoting the Blackburn Mosque example, which was a very controversial one a few years back. It was funded by KSA and Qatar. They installed Sheikh Abdurrahman Al Saudi, who was actually banned from entering the United States a few years back. But they not just funded and established the mosque, they installed the same man as an imam of the mosque, and he was heard calling upon Muslims to go and kill Jews and Americans, worshippers. So this is the kind of brand of Islam they are exporting to not just the West, but across the globe. And you will find out that the majority of the mosques in the UK are kind of controlled by the Saudi Arabia. You have seen the moon sightings. All the moon sighting in the UK is controlled by Saudi Arabia. The Muslims of Britain celebrate their Eids with Saudi Arabia. So the two most significant dates on the Muslim calendar, which are the two Eids, the Muslims of Britain are following Saudi Arabia as if there is no moon in the UK. So this is something which most people say doesn't matter much. But
so I mean, are you suggesting that it is the Salafis or the extreme point of view itself, the ideology, or is just the promotion of this ideology which is causing the damage and havoc across the world?
It is both actually. That ideology is the actual tool for terrorism, and Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and other states, they are actually funding it. They are actually exporting it, promoting it, not just in the UK, but everywhere in the world through mosques, madrasas, Islamic centers. They're injecting into the society this lethal ideology.
Okay, let's move on to whosoever becomes the vehicle of these propagation. Anjum Chaudhary, I want to talk about. Are you appalled by the airtime given by BBC and Channel 4, or what do you think? What do you make of it?
Well, there are 2 points of views. One is that it actually exposes them. So when you have an Islamist like Anjum Chaudhary on the TV talking about this nonsense, so I think it is enough to expose Islamists like them, because they don't really have an argument. All they're talking about is that they are just justifying violence without any meaningful argument. The other day, he denied to abhor the killing of the British soldier, which I think should be an eye-opener for the Muslim community. So on one side, I think it exposes them, but on the other side, some might say that it actually influences some, which I kind of disagree with. So
okay.
I think.
Yeah, please. I want to hear your argument.
I just want to add one thing. I think the linguistics, the narrative really matter. It would be okay to bring somebody like Anjum Chaudhary if you have somebody exposing him for who he is, which is a literalist, a literalist brandishing the Wahhabi brand of terror. So if you introduce him, hi, we have Anjum Chaudhary today, a literalist brandishing the Wahhabi brand of terror, go ahead. But when they bring him in and show him as a Muslim and as a you can say somebody who
is representing Islam,
that's what's wrong. We have to show him as who he is, which is a literalist branding the Wahhabist brand of terror. And then yes, go ahead. Yes, Mr. Chaudhary, you are a literalist brandishing the Wahhabi brand of terror. Please go ahead, say your thing.
Yeah, just to add to that, I will also say that the connection of these kind of people like Anjum Chaudhry, Hizb ut-Tahrir, or Muslim Brotherhood, Jamaat Islami, these kind of soft Islamist organizations who are actually not doing the terrorism themselves, but actually creating an environment which enables terrorism. The link between how they enable terrorism, that is not really discussed on the media very well, I think. Take the example of Sheikh Abdullah Al-Faisal, who was a Jamaican convert, and he actually went on to Saudi Arabia, studied there in a university, then went back to the West, and then promoted violence against non-Muslims. And nobody actually highlighted this, that one of the 7/7 bombers, which killed some 52 people in the London, he was actually a student of that guy. Similarly, take the example of Anjum Chaudhry. We have seen the footage that this killer of the British soldier was actually meeting Anjum Chaudhry in protest. So that's how they enable this terrorism. So not just the Muslim community, but the world at large need to understand that these kind of groups, which apparently don't look very harmful, they are actually creating an environment within the society and culture which promote terrorism, which actually lays the ground for actual terrorism and killing and bloodshed.
Okay.
I think I just want to say one thing to support Ali. We have data, and that has been posted consistently on LUBP, that 98% or a very overwhelmingly large number, like Ali is saying, that they create an environment that produces this. 98% of terrorists captured in Pakistan, for example, belong to the militant Takfiri Deobandi school of thought, which is the reflection of the same literalist Wahhabi ideology in Pakistan.
But you know,
Similarly,
how can you present an alternative to something which is only can be seen in black and white? There is no gray shade in their ideology. So how would you present something down there?
You mean when you say it's down there, do you mean present something
to the media, to the
people?
West, to the other Muslims who have been branded with this, within the same community as Takfiris and all Salafis?
Look at the data. Look at what Ali is saying, that they create this environment that produces this. So somebody listens to Anjum Chaudhry or like the 7/7 bombers, they get inspired and radicalized. And so if you look at all the data, if you look at 9/11, if you look at Boston, if you look at Abu Nidal, if you look at Faisal Shahzad, if you look at this guy now with the woolwich, and if you look at, you know, all of these belong to the same school of thought, the literalist Wahhabist school of thought. So don't you think we should look at the literalist Wahhabist school of thought, which is only there to strengthen and protect the caliphate of the Saudi royal family? And don't you think we should reevaluate it, because data supports it, the logic supports it?
I understand, but that's my question. How would you convince those people who are already on that threshold that their ideology is the right? For example, Ali, I want to bring you in that Anjum Chaudhry was protesting a few weeks ago. This obviously hasn't caught the eye of mainstream media, on Edgware Road in London, with the pictures of Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, Bashar al-Assad, and Irani President Ahmadinejad, and they were calling them axis of evil or close friends of Shaitan. And then they beaten up a Shia guy on Edgware Road as well. Nothing came up on the media, on the mainstream media, and these people are in UK propagating what they want to propagate, inciting hate within the communities as well as outside the communities. So how would you tackle those within the community very firstly?
I think that we don't really need to convince these people. These are outliers, that there's a specific community. What we actually need to do is we need to educate the world at large. We need to educate the Muslim community. If the community itself understands what is the problem with this ideological section of the community, I think that's what we need to do. And the data and the evidence that we have, that's so much and so clear that there's no room for doubt. All we need to do is clarify the data and evidence, use that, and to educate the community and the world at large. And I think that should be enough. We need to cut the support these people enjoy from within the Muslim community and from outside the community.
But
Ali was quoting the data from the country.
okay, we got some distortion, I believe. Yes, yeah. Coming back to this Woolwich murder now. So how would you present an alternative to the media? What's your strategy on that? One side is Salafi school of thinking, which got the money, resources, manpower.
I think one of the things that we have to do is to clarify the linguistics. And it's my personal opinion that we should use the literalist as an overarching umbrella word, because these people, they use their money. And I am certain that there are some in the Western media who are related to think tanks as well that are funded by the Saudi monarchy. So we have to take take that with a grain of salt, which some of the people in media try to obfuscate and paint these people as Sunni jihadists or Islamists, or not correctly identifying their literalist roots. So we have to push the media to use the correct narrative that these are literalists. They go by the name of Salafi, Wahhabi, Taliban, Mujahideen at one time, or Muslim Brotherhood at one time. But it is that literalist view that creates an environment for this. So the media has to change their narrative from using words like Islam, words like terrorist, to
Islamic terrorism.
To use correct words, to use the literalist Wahhabi brand of terror. These are literalist terrorists. That's who they are. And we have to, unless you correctly isolate these people, and the media, like I said, I really have my suspicions that there are some in the media that get funding from think tanks that are in turn funded by Saudis as well. So they will never use this, and in fact, they try to obfuscate and not correctly point out who these people are. So unless you identify the source of the problem, you can't begin to fix it. And quite frankly, President Obama and Prime Minister Cameron are guilty of the same thing. They are obfuscating, using cautious language, and obviously they have their interests.
Okay, I will come to. I want to focus more on that in a bit. But at the moment, I mean, Lee Rigby, a father of an infinite, a lovely friend of so many, and obviously a military man who served for his country. You tell us, Ali, that Michael Adeblajo and Michael Adebwal, when they say that we will fight an eye for eye and a tooth for a tooth, then do you think this is Saudi-funded terrorism have done so much damage within the community so much, or is just the individualistic approach, do you think?
Of course
they can get
has.
a meat cleaver and knives and just go and butcher someone?
Of course it has. I mean, we discussed in the last, the Boston attack program as well, that if someone goes and kills in the name of Islam, let's say, they don't have to be a member of a particular terrorist group like Al-Qaeda or Taliban. People have been doing it individually. There's so much hate speech and material available, not just online, in the mosques and madrasas. It takes a few days to radicalize, and then all you have to do is read stuff on the internet and you can do something. If you look at the data and studies, take the example of Dr. Dennis McCoy of the Newcastle University, and he, with a team of researchers, studied some mosques and madrasas and found the kind of literature which was being taught there. It was funded and published in Saudi Arabia, brought to the UK, and it was pure hate speech and violence against all kind of communities, and urging to burn people, stone them, and kill them. Similarly, Channel 4 has uncovered a lot of material from Saudi-funded mosques. So they are doing their bidding in all the mosques and madrasas and in the community through all possible means. And it has radicalized the community, and we have to accept it. I don't have any doubts on that.
Okay, and let's move on to this policy-making institution, Ali, you were talking about earlier, and I want to focus more on this. Their narrative, the killers, the butchers, they have been saying that it's to do with the foreign policy. They've been executed in Afghanistan, Iraq, and all the other Muslim lands. And what my understanding is that, don't you think there should be a shift of paradigm towards getting the right policy making in terms of stop sponsoring these terrorist organizations, not directly but indirectly? Because if you're sponsoring Saudi Arabia, for example, and you're not planning any, or you don't have any plan to install or propagate the democratic setup in Saudi Arabia, how would you expect that you will be safe from these people?
Well, The foreign policy is the realm of the government, and we have to respect whatever the foreign policy of the UK or the US government is. But it is our right as free citizens, and uh, as the First Amendment in the United States gives you this protection to express dissent. And what we have to do is what Dr. Taj Hegri said to RT in an interview, which is also posted on the same Rusty Walker article on LUBP, is that it is our right to express dissent, and we have to really and since UK probably is going to be the you can say the laboratory, or the testing ground for how these Muslim interest relations work within a Western framework. And quite frankly, because there's more Muslims in the UK, and they need to really voice, what their feelings are about these foreign policies, and their feelings should be captured instead of them being used by these literalists to create violence. So yes, there is foreign policy reasons which these people use, but if we channel that in a democratic way, if we give Muslims airtime to express their reservations with foreign, not only Muslims, but I would say 90% of the UK now firmly believes that they shouldn't have gone to war in Iraq. I don't think it's just
No,
Muslims.
I'm not even saying that, for example, in my own capacity, that I'm disputing the fact that I will be protesting against the foreign policy, but I should be using my own democratic rights within the society to show my dissent against this policy.
This is a great society which allows you to speak. In societies of 1400 years ago, you were killed for this, and this is why the son of the founder of the religion was killed for expressing his dissent. We have the privilege, excuse me, to be able to speak, so we must, and we must channel our dissent in a positive way, and that's the way out, is to make sure that the Muslim communities are able to express their dissent. And I would like to appeal to the general Western media, the mainstream channels such as Channel 4 or the BBC, to give alternative voices a chance to express dissent, so that the Muslim community, if they and they will be a dominant force in the UK, at least in the next 10-20 years, they see that their sentiments are being projected and are being heard, instead of them being exploited by nut jobs and literalists like Anjum Chaudhry.
Okay, Ale, you agree with it? I mean, do you think there has to be, was my understanding that they should change their policies towards sponsoring indirectly or directly these countries?
I think not just foreign policy, Britain in specific has to do a lot in domestic policy as well. There's so much evidence and data available how this particular ideology is destroying the British culture and the communities, but there's very little done. The way British authorities have responded to this ideological Wahhabi terrorism, it is inept at best. I would expect the British authorities to not just hunt down the Islamists, but also fight the cancer of this ideology, which is destroying our communities, our societies, and world at large. As a British citizen,
why do you think? I mean, what do you think? Why they're not doing it?
Well, there can be a variety of reasons. I mean, Muslims who see the West as the enemy and seek its destruction, it has become even more strong by the lack of resolve by the British authorities. And I think one of the reasons could be that there's a large Muslim community in the UK, and a strong action against these Islamists who have kind of integrated within the community. It might be seen as something as an attack on the Muslim community itself. Secondly, I think that there are probably some vested interest in the Arab regimes like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE. They have very strong ties, financial maybe. So that could be one reason as well. But the support of UK and other countries in the West or EU for Saudi Arabia, it's really tragic, and it is destructing for the whole world peace. And the nerve center of Islamic or Islamist terrorism, it's not Afghanistan, it's not Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, or Libya. It is Saudi Arabia. Let's be clear on this. There's no doubt about that. the root.
All you have to do is find out where the 9/11 hijackers came from.
Exactly. I mean, all the blame gets down to Pakistan, Iran, or Afghanistan, but all the 9/11 hijackers came from Saudi Arabia. Look at the 7/7 bombers; they were homegrown, influenced by the same ideology. I mean, you name it. Think of an Islamist group which wants to kill non-Muslims, enforce Sharia, which abhors democracy, and which wants to implement a caliphate. Taliban, Hizb ut-Tahrir, Free Syrian Army, Al-Qaeda, you name it. All of them are followers of the same Saudi literalist Wahhabi ideology.
But I mean, if you even try to present, for example, which I will say a quote as well, that, and I asked you this question in Boston bombings as well, that if you say that Saudi Arabia is the nerve center and we should do something, present an alternative, so we get accused of being supporting Iran or presenting a Shia version of Islam and not trying to help the community or help the larger community. So how do you defend that?
Well, I don't agree with that criticism. I mean, I'm no fan of Iran. I truly believe in a secular democracy. I love Britain. I love the way it is governed here, and I would want every country to be governed through a secular democracy. I don't believe any kind of theocracy, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Iran, is a solution of any kind. It will not work, and all of them will return back to a kind of pluralist democracy. But we don't need to create a false binary between Iran and Saudi Arabia. There's no comparison. Let's be honest about it. I mean, how many of these terrorist organizations, some of which I have just named, come from Iran? Not a single one. So there's no comparison at all, I think.
No, I would like to add further that, Iran may have a lot wrong with it. We can criticize it, whatever, but they're not evil twin sisters. And this is what's wrong, that you have to take one thing at a time. Look at the data, and we've gone over it again and again. So we have to focus on the problem.
I mean, Ali, that's my question. That, for example, if Iran is not sponsoring or there's no single terrorist coming out of it, jurisdictions, why West got a problem with Iran? Then they should be embracing them and they should be promoting them rather than having this enemy within.
No, Iran has issues too. For example, Ahmadinejad saying, denying the Holocaust or saying bad things about that. The West has interest in Israel. There's no doubt about it. So that is something that, is provocative and really, in my personal opinion, should be walked back. Iran needs to take a few steps forward, and actually Iran has, there's been multiple articles written about it, that the nuclear issue with Iran has made some very reasonable offers for the West to accept, and somehow or the other that has not been accepted. We should push on that direction and negotiate a peace with Iran, and we should not mix the two. Whatever differences the West has with Iran, this should be separate from this Wahhabi terror that is being propagated all over the world.
I completely agree that even the Woolwich murder is individual itself, and everyone should condemn it. And obviously, the Salafis and this Wahhabi understanding of Islam is a separate issue, but obviously this is culminating altogether towards this sort of radicalization. Moving on to radicalization, Ale, I want to ask you, what is the actual belief? I mean, I was reading an article. They say there are 4 elements to it. First one is Ummah, the second is Khilafah, the third is Sharia, and the fourth one is Jihad. So these sort of moments, they only focus on these 4 so-called pillars for their own theology. So do you agree this is needed? Can you hear me, Ali? Ali, can you hear me?
Ali Nadik?
Yes, Ali. Okay, Ali, please you go ahead.
Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure I understand. These 4 pillars, do you think?
This is written in an article that Ummah, Khilafah, Sharia and Jihad. These are the 4 so-called pillars of their theology. So do you agree this is needed in this moment in time? And I mean, how does this constitute all this?
What you're saying is that these 4 pillars, are they consistent with the modern nation state? Is that what you're asking?
No, it's not modern nation state. These 4 pillars, It's been promoted by the Salafi school of thinking that Ummah is one Ummah, pan-Islamism should be there, Khilafah, the Caliphate system should be there, and the Sharia, there should be only implementation of Sharia everywhere across the world. And if you cannot achieve this objective, then the jihad should be taken against all those people who are being reluctant in implementing those.
I think the key in that is the Khilafah, and to project Saudi monarchy as the Khilafah. I think what we need to do is to expose them for who they are. They are the people that took down the last legitimate Khilafah, which was the Ottomans, which was not very friendly to a lot of Muslims, like the Shias, for example. They were very oppressive, in fact, to the Shias. But still, the Shias, who were the victim of atrocities by the Ottomans and others, protested in the removal of the Ottomans by these usurpers, or the first Taliban, as I like to say, the Saudi family. There were only 260 horsemen that were given guns by the British intelligence to go out and take over Mecca and Medina. So they took it over. Now this has been a scheme, and like you said, Ummah, Khilafah, Sharia, they're using all this to create an image that Saudi is the true Khilafah. And they're using the religious texts such as the Quran and Hadith to twist it and to say things that help the Khilafah. And the bottom line on this is, since the King of Saudi Arabia is the King of Saudi Arabia and is looking after the two grand mosques, therefore he is the Caliph, and you cannot challenge him. And that is the bottom line. That is the true bottom line in all this, and that needs to be exposed within the Muslims, that this is all complete hogwash. And just like it was hogwash that Yazid was the true caliph, because he was the caliph, because he's the caliph, therefore Allah must have wished it. And it's the same thinking. Since King Abdullah is the caliph or the king, since he's it's almost saying that since somebody is a murderer, Allah must have wished that he's a murderer. That makes no sense. And this is what the fundamental wrong is in literalist interpretations. That yes, a lot of things in the Quran and a lot of things in Hadith can be used with a literalist interpretation that is going to be very harmful, not just for the Muslim community, but for the whole world at large. So therefore, we have to be very careful on the motivations of using these things.
Okay, Ale, this mechanical way of thinking of promoting this jihadi organizations, and as I mentioned, this 4 pillars, that Ummah, Khilafah, Sharia, and Jihad. How can you tackle or combat these? If you've been given a task to challenge these, how would you make any changes to bring in all those who are deluded at the moment and or just completely ignorant, I would say?
Well, you see, these kind of terms or ideas like Khilafah and Ummah and Muslim Golden Age, this kind of utopia is a very useful tool which these jihadi organizations or Wahhabi use to actually attract young minds. I'll talk specifically to the British Muslim community. Take the example of the young Muslim Britons. They face an identity crisis here. They fail to connect with the identity of their parents, which could be subcontinent, Asian, or Middle Eastern identity. They probably find it tribal or too backward. They also don't find them fitting well enough into the British identity. Neither they approve of imams imported from other countries, unaware of the local British or European issues. At the same time, they are raised in an environment which encourages them to question a thing for themselves in the British schooling system. So at this moment, what happens is Wahhabism comes as an alternative ideology to them. It is accessible to them through very modern, well-equipped mosques, through English-speaking young imams imported from Saudi Arabia and other Arab states, through the internet, catchy pamphlets, booklets, magazines, all kinds of things. It becomes a very attractive choice. It gives them a sense of empowerment, it gives them some new identity, and a utopia of a Muslim golden age and a caliphate and a world ruled by Muslims. So this is the kind of tool that they use to attract young Muslim minds, to kind of brainwash them using this tool. So that's how it works here.
Okay. Ali, what's your view? I mean, last few minutes.
Well, I agree with Ali, but I'd just like to close on uh, saying that this is not unlike the people that killed the son of the founder of the religion. You know, there is two groups there. One group which is funded and is after money interest. That analogy would be the royal family of Saudi Arabia. And the other group, like Ali Natik correctly pointed out, is the impressionable young minds who are fed this, you know, I don't want to use a bad word here, but they're fed this junk, if you will, that, you know, these four pillars or other literalist interpretations. But if you look at the very end of it, it is just their design to protect the king. That's all it is. Their interest is to preserve their caliphate.
But have you got an intelligent design to present an alternative? Do you think people will listen?
I think we're starting to do that here. We have to project what we're saying here, and we have to go with these thoughts. And you know, it doesn't matter who does it, but we should go with these thoughts to the BBC or the CNN and expose these people. That is the strength of the countries that we live in, the United States or the United Kingdom, that we have First Amendment rights. Our Constitution, our founding fathers have given us those protections to speak, and this is something that that the son of the Prophet never had. That Imam Hussein never had. At that time, you were killed for speaking against the king. But here we can speak against even our own governments. We have those rights. We have to identify correctly and speak out.
So basically, if I can conclude on just, I will come to you for 30 seconds, that soul searching must be done within our own Muslim society, and then taking it on to a broader version of community where everyone should be included. Do you agree?
Absolutely. You got the point.
Okay. What was Ali Natik?
Well, to conclude, I will only say that I was not really surprised to see what has happened at Woolwich, because I've been speaking about the danger of this ideology to all of us. The reaction of the Muslim community was meaningless, as I've been saying. The way UK deal with these Wahhabi terrorist groups is inept. And finally, what the Saudis are doing in the case of British Islam, I regard that as a potentially lethal for the future, not just of the UK or the Muslim community, but at the world at large, I think.
Okay, thank you very much both, Ali Natik, for joining us from London, and Ali Taj from California, United States. Viewers, we have discussed today the horrific murder and the ramifications behind this Woolwich attack. Lee Rigby, all thoughts and prayers with his family. And I would say only one thing, that we are not apologetic. We condemn this horrific and ferocious attack on the civil liberties and in the very face of humanity. And we are law-abiding citizens. If we do disagree with foreign policy or with any other policy of the country we live in, we do have the right procedures in place to contest or demonstrate against those. We will, inshallah, we will reclaim our space, and we will and we must present an alternative, a counter argument, and we should present a vibrant, forward-looking, inclusive Islam. And that was promised on the day. I have quoted this narration before as well, that those of you who know the sequence of when Ayah Mubahala was revealed, Christians and Muslims prayed in a mosque together under the instruction of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Even the companions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, refused and protested against it, but Prophet, peace be upon him, talked to them and allowed the Christians to pray in the same mosque. And we follow that Islam. We do not follow a Salafi or extremist or a version of Islam which can only see things in black and white and then can straight away deny our right of existence for anyone else. With this prayers, as always, gam humko na de siwaye gam shabbir, shabbir ka gam baant raha hai to idhar de. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad.